Loose White dive on it.
This is twice now the Celtics have been first to the floor.
They try to save with Horford. Unbelievable.
Boston first to the floor. So good.
Brown fakes, fires up the three. Bang! Tatum dives on the floor. Everybody dives. Jaylen Brown with the flush. Blocked by Porzingis. He's doing it all. Tatum spinning, driving, layup. Washington drives. Blocked by White. Oh, what a block from Derek White.
What is up? First to the floor. I'm Jake Eisenberg. We've got the next episode of our Eastern Conference Rivals series here today. And we've got a new team kind of entering the Eastern Conference fray a little bit here. So I'm joined by first timer to first to the floor, Pistons Jack. How's it going?
I'm good, man. Thank you so much for having me on. I didn't actually say this to you before, but I've watched your show many times before, especially in the playoffs the past couple of years. I tune in for your post-game live streams. So man, I love what you guys do. I've always appreciated like the presentation that you guys have on YouTube and everything. So excited to jump on, talk some Pistons, obviously, but been a close watcher of the Celtics here and there across like the entire time I followed the NBA. So I'm excited for this.
Yeah, thank you. Really appreciate you hopping on. Lovely to talk to a fellow Australian about some hoops. If you're listening or watching, you're probably thinking like there's a Jake variant on the other side here with slightly better hair, slightly better mustache, probably a little bit taller. And until now, at least I was able to say that my basketball team was better. But this is probably the first team. I went back and had a look. Probably the first time since the 13-14 season where the Pistons actually finished slightly ahead of the Celtics in the standings. But it's been a while since the Pistons have had the mantle. And this year it's looking like the Pistons are going to be at least ahead of the Celtics. But how did you start as a Detroit Pistons fan? I'm always interested in Australians and how their fandom comes about.
Yeah, so it's back. I reckon I started following the NBA in like 06 or 07 when I first started playing basketball. But like didn't have a team for like 4 or 5 years. But I really liked the Dwight Howard Orlando Magic teams in that late 2000s. Like I know they had some clashes with your Celtics.
Yep.
And I remember it must have been like 2011, I want to say, and I saw like a mock draft just on NBA.com. And they had this guy called Andre Drummond. He was projected to be the number 1 overall pick for the 2012 draft, and he was meant to be like the next Dwight Howard. And I YouTubed him, and I saw his like high school highlights. I'm like, oh wow, like this, I love this guy. Like he reminds me a little bit of Dwight. And then so I kind of followed him at UConn as much as you can from Australia with college basketball. Like especially back then, it was pretty hard, but you just watch highlights. And then he went. I was like, whoever drafts him, that's my team. So the Pistons end up taking him, I think, at pick 9, got league pass that season. And honestly, I reckon I've watched as many games as I can. And then obviously now this is what I do full time for the past year. But like, that's like the origin story. Andre Drummond.
Unbelievable. That is not where I thought you were going. I thought there would have been a Rip Hamilton, a Taurean Prince, but Andre Drummond. That's special. Did he live up to the hype?
No, he didn't. But I think like his first 4 or 5 years were like fun. But I would say the more I watched NBA basketball and the more I come to understand about the game. And I think like the whole 3-point line changing with Steph in like the mid 2010s, like players like him became almost extinct. Like, and he probably didn't live up to the potential, but to be honest, that was when I was just an absolute true fan, didn't care too much about outcomes. I would honestly, for the first 3 seasons, I would change the channel on League Pass to a different game when he was on the bench. Like I was just an Andre Drummond fan.
Go.
So, but that's obviously turned into like just being a Pistons fan. And yeah, that's the story. I don't have any allegiance to any of the championship teams. Sure. Nothing. So last year was the first playoff win I've ever seen as a fan. Those 2 wins. So yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah.
That's wild. Yeah. Slightly different experience. So my dad's from Boston, so if that's
Yeah.
I feel like that's I feel like I have to explain myself when I'm a Celtics fan as an Australian because it feels like I'm a bit of a bandwagon guy. But Drummond was a guy that Celtics fans were obsessed with for a few years there when like we just like couldn't rebound, and then man, it happened overnight. He went from being like a max player to a vet min guy, as you were saying, like that archetype just was not valued as like pretty much like Steph Curry, shot 285 threes and that was it.
It's funny as well. This is like a bit of a Celtics crossover here with my fandom. The first Pistons game I ever saw in person was Cade's rookie season in 2021. Oh, it must have been 2022, sorry. It was the game before the All-Star break. You guys had just traded for Derek White. I think you're on a 9-game winning streak or 8
Yep.
games. And the Pistons came in and they won at the Garden. It was crazy. That was my first Pistons game ever. And I remember it was like the first quarter. I was like just happy it was close. I was like, if they keep it close at halftime, I'll be sweet. And then somehow they win on a Jeremy Grant game winner. And like the Garden's always been one of my. Is it still called TD Garden?
It is still
Yeah.
called TD Garden. I'm trying to find the game here, but
But like that was always one of my favorite arenas. Like I would play with the Celtics
dude.
all the time on 2K because I just love their court. I actually used to trade Drummond to the Celtics and play with that team on 2K. So yeah, if any
Dude.
Pistons fans are watching, they'll probably hate me. But I've
This-
always been a bit of a fan of the Celts.
This is great. I'm just looking at the box score now. So yeah, Celtics killer for at least his
Yeah.
first couple seasons in the NBA, Sadiq Bey.
Yeah.
He couldn't miss against the Celtics in his rookie
Yeah.
season. That's right. It was a 1 point Pistons W. Cade had a nice game, 28-6. Man,
Yeah.
that was
That was-
there you go. We got our man. The Celtics should have won. They played pretty well. They shot 40% from three. Shout out to the Pistons. You had Celtics legend Kelly Olynyk on the other side as well, who went 3 for 4 from three.
Well, it was interesting. That's when your team, like the Celts, just started turning their season around. Like, is that it's the only year of
Ime Udoka.
Udoka? And then you were like 500, and then you won 8 in a row or something, 8 or 9. Then the Pistons, and I was like, oh, there's no way we're winning this game. This is going to be a bloodbath, and they somehow won. It was a very fun night for me, but unexpected.
Nah, that's awesome. There's definitely something special about getting over there and getting to some of these games, following it from far away. But yeah, we want to get a feel for your fandom, and this show is built off of a lot of hate and sports hate. Obviously, we have the Schadenfreude report where we keep tabs on the Sixers, the Knicks, etc. So, like, who are the teams or team that the Pistons fans or you specifically hate? Like when you'll tune in to the fourth quarter when you see this team is down 5 to the Brooklyn Nets. You're like, I need this W.
So we haven't, because we've been so like irrelevant and bad for the most part of me being a fan, like in terms of rivalries and hate watching, there's not a lot. But I would say the most recent one is the Indiana Pacers. And I've got down here Pacers pre-finals run because they kind of won me over with the way they played and just some of the shot making. Like, I mean, they obviously, it was incredible, but I still hate the Pacers. And like Tyrese Halliburton, I know he's got a very unfortunate injury, but that man, like, they were just so good last year. They beat us 3 times in a row. We got 1 win, but they just clowned us. And the Pacers are like one of the only teams I truly hate.
Okay, that's funny because we had Nathan Marzion from the Bucks on previously, and they hate the Pacers as well. We couldn't quite get him to put the Pacers over the Celtics in the teams that he hates, but because the Pacers they call it front running, but they just love to kind of celebrate, talk a little bit of smack, and when you're on the other side of that, I can definitely understand why that sucks. But it's funny because a few teams do feel that way about the Pacers, but the Celtics fans became Pacers fans last season just because every win the Pacers got in the playoffs just validated the 2024 Celtics. So that's fair. The Pistons had a spicy win against the Celtics last season. So I know there were some Celtics fans that were They were a little upset about the Pistons. We came in on a back-to-back, and the Pistons just
Yeah.
like when we went off early. We were hitting a ton of threes,
Yeah.
but it was kind of like a fugazi. We're playing
So
bad, but we're hitting threes game.
I was at that game. I think it was my second Pistons game when I was in Detroit. Is that the
Mate,
one
there's
where
something
Asar
about it.
crossed up? Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's the one where Asar crossed up, JT.
It is.
And but I've just always felt like I've never really the Celtics. You guys have just been so good for so long that I kind of don't get too frustrated because I'm used to just. We've had some close games like across the time, but like the Celtics, it's never really bothered me losing. I think the Pacers do because they don't have like that true superstar like a Tatum, like a SGA. But I guess Halliburton kind of is that. But then they front run. So that was a fun night. We beat the Celtics because no one was expecting that.
Yeah, I know that was a frustrating win because we were trying to like make a little like stabilize and make our run. But yeah, the Pistons became. I mean, everyone on the Celtics side was going for the Pistons in round one because it's always fuck the Knicks, it's always fuck the Sixers, it's always like it's all those times. And man, the Pistons. There's been chatter that the Pistons are responsible for Jason Tatum tearing his Achilles because if they had won that series, who knows? The butterfly effect. Who knows what would have happened?
So true.
But
don't know if I
tough.
buy into that.
Yeah. We've been grasping at straws for a few months here, but
Oh.
we'll pay some bills here quickly, and then we'll jump into the expectations for the Pistons after this. It's Prize Picks time. The Patriots, Bills, prime time, Monday Night Football. I talked about how Patriots fans are getting ahead of themselves. I've only seen more of it over the past few days. Patriots fans are talking about how the Bills aren't going to see Drake May coming. I think we're setting ourselves up for a bit of disappointment going into Buffalo as like 9-point underdogs, but I still like the matchup for Drake May. So we're going to go more on Drake May completions yards, more on Josh Allen completions yards. I think it's going to be a bit of a shootout. Two defenses that have been pretty suspect over the past couple of weeks. Don't forget the Prize Picks also offers injury reboot. So if your player gets injured in the first half, it won't count as a loss. So if you're like me and Tyreek Hill's on your fantasy team and he rips his knee off of his body, you don't have to worry about it too much. Download the app today. Use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Download the app today. Use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. All right, get into it. I'm getting my shit kicked in my fantasy league where if I come last, you have to run a half marathon while drinking 6 beers. And I'm not sure I'm going to be able to physically handle that. So it's not a good start for me on this end. Do you dabble in the NFL at all?
Not really. Like I've tried, but the time difference, as you would know, I just this because most of the games are Sunday afternoon. Like that's just I'm not getting up on Monday morning. I just can't, and I got to watch the games if I'm going to commit to a sport.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. I'd sacrifice my sleep for about 5 to 6 weeks until the clocks really turn. All right, expectations for the Detroit Pistons. They currently have the fifth highest over under in the Eastern Conference, which I mean that's going to be the highest in a long time. So to remind people, we lost Malik Beasley, controversially. Hardaway Jr., Dennis Schroeder, and my guy Fontecchio to the Miami Heat. We bring in Duncan Robinson, Celtics legend, Javonte Green, Karis LeVert, Celtics killer, draft Chaz Lanier. So expectations. You make the first round of the playoffs, probably feel like you let one slip a little bit in that first round. So where are we in 2025, 2026?
So I think that the goal is to win a playoff series, but in terms of expectations, I think it is to continue to see improvement from the young core. Like we still have 4 top 5 picks on the roster, and then Jalen Duren, who is, I see him as kind of a top 5 talent. Like, so we've got those 5 players: Duren, Ivy, Asar, Ron Holland, and obviously Cade, who's established now. But seeing them grow, develop is still the primary goal. I think you want to. I've got them at like 47 wins, and they're either going to be the 4th or 5th seed for me in the East. Some Pistons fans think they're a 50-plus win team, closer to 55, top three. But I
55.
think that I think like I'm not. I think there's a world that happens for sure because this is the first time in like 4 years the Pistons have had the same coaching staff and front office. Like they've
Right.
gone through Dwayne Casey, Monty Williams. Now we have JB Bickerstaff. So there's actual real continuity for the first time since this rebuild started in 2020. So I think that's actually a real thing. Obviously your Celtics, even with like the turnover, I guess there has been some turnover with the coaches, but I think continuity is huge and something this team just hasn't had. And I'm a big believer in the defense of this team. I'm a little bit concerned about the lack of shooting, and there's a player on your Celtics roster I'll be keeping an eye on around the deadline, which we might touch on later. But I think overall this team should be about the same, if not marginally better. And I think that kind of aligns with where the over-unders have them. But I would struggle to see them losing more, like winning less than 44 games like they did last year. That would be pretty disappointing to me.
Yeah, because they won 44 and they looked kind of like the old Pistons in the first, what was it? You would know better than me, like 15, 20
Yeah.
games or so.
Yeah.
And they really took off from then. So like the win pace once they kind of settled was much closer to 50 than it was to 40. So yeah, 55 feels high, but in this Eastern Conference, I guess like if you do get progression from, and like I guess it's not, it wouldn't be surprising if you see the 4th overall pick in Asar really start to figure it out. Especially, he's probably my X factor on that Pistons team because obviously a ton of flashes. I mean, the athleticism is just out of control, and you can see like if he starts to put a little bit of it together, you can see how he can just impact the game night in, night out, possession after possession. And so, when you have a bunch of guys that are that age, if they all take steps forward, which they kind of should, some might be smaller than others. Why not take a 6 to 8 game step forward? What's the starting lineup looking like? Cade, Ivy, Asar, Tobias, Duran? Is that what the...
Yeah.
Okay.
And the key piece here is, and you outlined it, how they did start slow and they started to figure things out in mid to late December. And that was coincided with Asar Thompson came back. So he missed the second part of the last third of his rookie season with like blood clots, had no off season, was getting into shape. Once the season had started, he was cleared for 5-on-5. So he was the major piece that kind of unlocked the defense. And he only played 22 minutes a game. So he was on it wasn't an official minutes restriction, but his impact, even with a very limited offensive game, like when you go through all the advanced numbers, like his on-offs, it's just crazy. They're all so positive. They were in the playoffs. So getting him towards 28 minutes per game and him actually starting for, let's say he plays 70 games, I think he is the X factor, like you said. And getting Jaden Ivey back. A lot of Pistons fans, like he seems to be maybe the odd man out of the young core. But I think he was playing tremendous last year until he unfortunately got a fractured leg about 30 odd games into the season. So, like I said, if they get to around 48 wins, I think that's successful. And I would like them to win a playoff series, but like it'll depend on matchups. We'll see what that looks like later in the season.
Yeah, like on paper, depth wise, they should beat a Milwaukee Bucks. Let's say if that ends up being like the 4-5, for example. Yeah. But it's like if Giannis comes out and just has like an all-time series, there's only so much you can do.
Giannis always kills us. So like as weak as that Bucks team is, like him and Brook Lopez, I know so Lopez isn't there anymore, but Giannis, like I think he just sees the Pistons and just he doesn't matter who's on the roster, how good we're going, like he'll come in. We don't have anyone to defend him. Like no one really does, but
yeah, few do.
Maybe the team defense will step up this year, but he's just had a field day. But I do think in the playoff series, like you said, the Pistons probably should be maybe favored.
Yeah, I like the depth. Yeah, Ivy had a really good start to the season. The injury, he seems like he's going to be healthy, but like just on Asar, because I'm really interested, to talk to someone who's watched every second of his career. Like because obviously the offensive game's limited. you have no questions about defense and like decision making with the ball in his hands. But what is the kind of he's year 3. What he's worked on a ton of stuff, I'm sure, in the offseason, but like what do you want to see offensively to like give you confidence that the offensive game can start to like build as he moves through his career?
Yeah, a lot of people will say the jump shot, but I think if you look at both the Thompson twins, like the jump shots are like going to be a work in progress for a while. So you want that to get to like a league average, but I think for Asar it's ball handling, and some of that's like him being able to, you know, confidently drive left, right, improve his actual ball handling, but it's not have turnovers, decision making. So this season, they were JB Biggerstaff was saying there's going to be more of an emphasis of him being on ball. Like part of the decision of them letting Dennis Schroeder walk was the Kings offered a ridiculous offer to start with. So the Pistons were never going to probably bring him back on $15 million a season, but they also want to put the ball in the hands of Asar more and Jaden Ivey as well with him back. So for me, like I really want to see his finishing. He has some really creative finishes, but sometimes I feel like even when you watch the Thompson twins at OTA, like they can slightly overcomplicate their finishing sometimes because they're so athletic. But I think if he can improve his finishing and ball handling, and that will lend into playmaking, those are the things I want to see this season. And then it's like, let's worry about the 3-point shot a bit later. Because if he can become a guy that can get to the rim and penetrate the paint at like will, then you just put shooting around him.
Yeah.
So those are the things I think Pistons fans would say.
Yeah, I think that would be the number one thing for the Pistons to take a real step forward is that, and we'll get to Cade shortly here, but it's like how can you just alleviate some pressure from him? And that's a problem that a lot of teams face, especially when you get to the playoffs. It's like, okay, you've got Cade, we're going to make things really, really hard on him. Can the other guys beat you? And that's why the Celtics for the past 2 seasons and even the past 4 seasons have been so good. It's like you've got Jalen there, but the last couple of seasons, it's like, well, Derek White can do a ton of like dribble pass shoot. Drew Holiday can dribble pass shoot, and your big man can also do stuff. So it's like who can start to alleviate some of that pressure, and then can we get Cade off the ball? Can he start just to attack? Can he get a few possessions a game where he's attacking a manipulated defense as opposed to having to run tough half court sets over and over again? Because like the turnovers are always going to be there. They will probably come down as he gets better, but like when the defense just are so locked in on him, it's just hard to manage that.
So that's the thing, like the dribble pass shoot aspect of that Celtics roster, especially the one that won the championship. I think the Thunder do an amazing job at that as well. They like at least 4 guys, if not 5, can dribble pass shoot, and if they can't shoot, they can dribble pass. And I think that's the Pistons are getting a bit closer to that, but for a long time, like they haven't had that. So I think Ivy, if we kind of compare the Pistons to the Celtics just a little bit, like I think Cade's your Tatum. I think this is Ivy's, I don't want to say last chance, but maybe last chance with the Pistons this season to show he can be a secondary scoring option or like a 2B. And then Asar is like your Derek White. And now, obviously, Asar doesn't have the jumper. Different players, but just in terms of like the pecking order of guys that can handle the ball, I think that's what the Pistons envision with this roster. And then they brought in Karis LeVert to be like that more veteran type guy who can handle a little bit and create his own shot.
Yeah, he'll be important because Dennis Schroeder, he was awesome for the Pistons. I thought in that playoff series, it was like defensively really solid, and they desperately needed someone that could just create something. And it's funny the Dennis Schroeder, because he did not work here. You just got to spin the wheel, and depending on where it lands, he either works for a team or he doesn't. And I thought that he was like really, I mean, maybe, I don't know if you disagree, but I thought he was pretty important for them last season.
No, he was in the playoffs. He hit some huge shots, like that game 2 win. He was the one who hit like the 3-pointer to like kind of seal the game. And he hit countless big shots. He wasn't as good in the regular season, but we just had so little point guard play that he was, very impactful. But he came through in the playoffs for sure.
Yeah. And all of that's kind of great, but it all is going to come back to Cade Cunningham. And I'm sure it's like but when you draft someone in the top 3, there's a ton of pressure because if you miss on those picks, then you're just stuck. Like you look at Utah, who hasn't had a chance to draft like actually first overall, but like you need to hit on one of these top 5 picks. And it took a little while for Cade. And I think that was more of an environment context as opposed to a Cade thing. But last season, that was the breakout year that a lot of people thought that we would always see. Well, he made third team All NBA, right?
Yeah.
And well deserved. So, and he's 23, 24 still.
Yeah, I think he just turned 23, I want to
Yeah.
say.
I
Maybe it
mean,
was
that's
24, something
I'll,
like that.
I'll grab it here. But yeah, what's the next step for him? I guess, well, firstly, where do you have him ranked now? So he makes all NBA, so he's definitely got a case as top 15.
The pure fan in me would say he's top 15, but if I'm trying to like zoom out a little bit, I think he's like around that. I'll just say between 16 to 20 range. I think like just based on how good he played last year, like if you remove like any historical performances from prior seasons when comparing him to players around the league, like I think maybe he's in the top 15. But I think he's probably got to, and I think he will do this, but I think it's just a matter of stacking up these type of seasons and continuing to stack the wins. So I'd say he's between in the 16 to 20 range. But I think by the end of the season, it'll be closer to 10 than 20.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, right? He's still, and it's great to see him get better year over year, and he clearly has the work ethic, and that's going to a lot of the time be the separator in some of these top guys. Like our supposed to be golden boy Ben Simmons of Australian basketball, like it looked like he was going to be a surefire top 10 guy, but he just doesn't seem. Obviously, there was some injury stuff here. I'm looking at the where did ESPN put Cade here? 12. Okay,
yeah, they had him quite high. I was surprised. I thought ESPN would have him probably low 20s, high teens. Obviously, I like that, but
sure.
I think it's just a touch high based on what the career aspect so far, but maybe they're looking at it from just a purely last season going into this season. So
yeah, if you're going to say this is what it's going to be once we get to the playoffs, I can definitely see him in that 12 range. And when we're talking about as Celtics fans who we want to see succeed this season, the Pistons are very high on the list. It's essentially anyone besides the Knicks is kind of how it works. And so you've got Giannis as the best player in the East. Tatum was going to kind of put him to the side for now. I think there is a world that Cade can, in any playoff series outside of against the Bucks, be the best player in the series. Donovan Mitchell and Jalen Brunson are the two guys that I would still have ahead of him right now. But there's just like being that 6'6", 6'7" playmaker, scorer, do it all type of guy. Like you can just impact the game in so many ways. I mean, he's similar to Tatum in that way. It's very hard to find guys that size that can do so many things. That would be like the high end wet dream for a Pistons fan. It's like, do we get that big leap? He's just turned 24. Because Bronson, I love Bronson, but there's obviously limitations. Mitchell's kind of reached his ceiling here. Is it Cade?
Yeah, no, I think I would just say like Jalen Brunson, that's probably a player I hate watched a lot, but then watching him in person in the playoffs just absolutely torch us in every fourth quarter. Like it just got to a point where I'm like, I kind of have to respect this because he can be playing pretty like he's always like going to score the ball, but there can be times in those first 3 quarters where he's not playing that well. But then every fourth quarter, that man just like, even if we had a lead of like 8 to 10, I was like, nah. So I got to respect him. But I wanted to actually ask you, because with Cade, like last season for me, like no matter what happened, like I wouldn't even have cared if we didn't make the playoffs. As long as we finish in like the 10th seed or higher, just seeing him actually like solidify himself as like a guy was like the best feeling for me as a fan, because the season before losing 28 straight games, it was just like, is this team just doomed? We're going to have to rebuild again. Like is Cade, I always knew Cade would be an all-star, but I was like, is he going to be all NBA? Like, and to see him just get that was the biggest win for me. Cause it's like, now I know as long as he's healthy on this team, you've got that the hardest piece to get. Was there I guess with Tatum, the Celtics immediately made the playoffs and it was a completely different situation, but was there a moment, a season where you're like, oh, wait, no, like I'm good now? Like as a fan, like I feel like we've fully got our number one guy. There will always be improvements to their game, but it's like, as long as we've got him, we're good. Was there a season that sticks out
Well,
for him?
I mean, it felt like it happened in his rookie year when he was in Game 7 against LeBron and he
Yeah.
dunked on him and he hit a three. But like that second year for Tatum and the Celtics was very weird. Like the Kyrie, like they very much underachieved. That moment was his third year, the 2019 season, his age 21 year, where he goes nuts before the bubble shut down. And then in that playoff run, he goes 25, 10, and 5 and leads them to the conference finals. And it wasn't perfect. It was honestly similar to like, it's like he's probably overtasked as being a lead creator at this age in the playoffs, going up against like legit playoff defenses. But he's putting up 25, 10, and 5+ assists, driving wins, and they make their run to the conference finals. And then Eric Spoelstra just like turned his brain into a pretzel essentially. And Daniel Tice couldn't guard Bam Adebayo, but like that was the moment where Celtics fans were like, yeah, we got a guy. I think he got snubbed for All NBA from Pascal Siakam, I want to say, that season. But like he was still so young at that point. We were like,
Yeah.
if he's already doing this at 21, that was a moment. But you're right though, like nothing else. If the goal is to really be a legit contender and win playoff series, none of it really matters unless you have one of those guys.
Yeah.
And Cade, I think, proved, especially at that age, like that 23, 24, you need to see it at that point. And from far away, it's hard to watch every game. It felt like you could blame the context on Cade, but it's after a point, it starts to become like he's the guy. At some point, you need to see something. And that 28 game losing streak was tough.
I remember in the 28 game losing streak, I was like, I just don't know if a number one pick All NBA guy lets this happen. But I did come to realize that like that the organization was a mess, the roster was a mess. They did a full clean out from top to bottom, front office, coaching staff, roster turnover. So I think the context really did matter more now that I look back at it. But it was just so good to have like no more of those questions after last season. Like it's like we've got a guy. So
yeah, man, he's fun to watch, and it's great to see someone come through that adversity, because Tatum and Jalen, like on one hand, they didn't get to have the same, ball handling, responsibilities, but they came right on to really good teams. And most of these guys come on, like Devin Booker is a guy that reminds me of Cade in that way, in that like he got called, good stats, bad team guy, to quote Bill Simmons, but it's like that team was just such a disaster. How can you truly evaluate someone like that? And so it's really great to see Cade like fight through that adversity and show that he can be a guy on a winning team. So Pistons, the East is open to an extent. Like as good as the Knicks are, as good as the Cavs are, neither of them have proven to be like surefire. We win, we go to the conference finals, we go to the finals every year. Like if the Pistons come out and they're on a 50+ win pace by the deadline, will they be aggressive? Can they be aggressive? Are there some guys you've got your eye on? I was listening to Bill Simmons and Michael Pina yesterday talk about the Larry Markkinen possibilities, which is obviously on the high end of the aggression scale. But yeah, what are your thoughts on some potential moves?
So that is the name. And I think it's the Pistons' biggest area they need to address on the roster is the 4. Like Tobias was really good last year. I think he was really good in the playoffs, like, and just in terms of a culture guy, like he was just talking to people in the team and around it, like he was an incredible, well, it's his second stint with the Pistons, but the bringing back was amazing. But we know he's 32, 33. Like that doesn't fit the age profile. So I think Larry's a little bit older than I think you would imagine. I think he's like 28, maybe even 29, but I obviously like he's still in the middle of his prime. And that is the name. If the Pistons get off to a slow start, or more so, not a slow start, but around the start of the new year, they aren't where they need to be. I would say it could be due to the fact that potentially the backcourt of Ivy and Cade just isn't clicking. And that's the big question for this season with this team is like, is it going to work or not? Because Like Ivy's extension eligible. I don't think he's going to sign one before. I don't even know if they can sign them anymore, but before the season. So Markkanen would address a lot of needs with this roster. He complements Jalen Duren in terms of being able to stretch the floor, complements Cade. He'd be that second scoring option, if not first on some nights. So that's the big name and the aggressive name. But when you listen to the front office talk, they wanted to, they didn't want to make a big swing in the offseason. But I think if things aren't trending the way they like, I think Markkanen could be a name because there is a package there the Pistons can put together. They have all their picks, young players, and everything you would need to get that done. It's just your man, Danny Ainge. I'm not sure. I think he would probably be asking for half our roster to get it done. So, but that is the name.
Yep. I do wonder what Lowry's value is around the league because he's on a huge contract. Danny Ainge, I thought, missed the boat. Like he should have gotten the maximum value when he was on that like scam sub $20 million deal when he was like a legit all-star. Now he's on a max. They're just like can be hard to move, but incredible fit. And that's the hardest thing to find in the NBA now. And why Tatum is kind of like a skeleton key roster piece. It's like 6'9" plus, shoot at a high level and defend. And Lowry has proven to be able to play a ton of different roles. He'd be such a good fit. Such a good fit. I think he would completely change Cade's life. Like to have that, you can run him at the 5, at the 4, but like to have, he's a legit sniper with that type of size. Like there's just certain skill sets in the NBA that can rain fire down night after night and in tough spots. And I think that would be, would you do it? Like if it like today it's Ivy, Tobias, Stewart, and 2 firsts.
I'm so torn because like I think the deal that I think you're referencing Michael Pena through, I wouldn't trade Stewart. But I think the one of Tobias, Ivy picks, I feel like they would want Ron Holland or something else, but I would probably I want to see this young core still. Like I think I genuinely, I might sound crazy, but I'm a huge Ivy fan, and I just don't think the context and injuries that have happened to this young core across the past 3 years, like Ivy missed basically 2/3 of a season, Cade missed the whole season, Asar missed massive portions of seasons. Like they just haven't been able to play together. And the few times they have, they've actually, the numbers are solid. Like it seems to work. So I don't think I would do that trade right now for Markkanen, but ask me again in a couple of months and maybe my tune will change. Because that contract is massive. And I think he looked good at Eurobasket, but he's had some injury issues. He is I think he's like a 7-footer. So there is some concerns there, but I think it would be a pretty perfect fit.
Yeah, Neemias Queta also looked really good at Eurobasket, so I wouldn't read too much into Eurobasket. But yeah, like, and from a Celtics fan perspective, it's hard for me to envision a team that's starting Tobias Harris being full. And I know he had an awesome season, and that was another piece of schadenfreude for us all year long. It was like Tobias Harris was like a sixth man for the Celtics for his entire career at the Sixers, and then he goes to the Pistons and ends up like being really important for both on court and as a veteran leader. He was legitimately better than Paul George last season. Like not even really a question.
Yeah.
So we personally enjoyed that, but the clock does kind of strike midnight on Tobias when things get really, really tight in our experience.
I wanted to, just while we're on the subject of trades, I wanted to bring up Sam Hauser because the Pistons have, I think Hauser, from memory, is he on about a $10 to $12 million deal expiring?
Yep.
Is that correct? Or not expiring, maybe?
Not expiring, but yeah, 10 or so, 10 or 11.
So obviously the Pistons wanted to bring back Malik Beasley, but we don't know what's happening there. They did get Duncan Robinson, but like there's a huge reliance on him to be a sniper. And one of the things last season that was really good is the Pistons had Beasley and Tim Hardaway Jr. to open up the floor. So Hauser's a guy I've got my eye on because the Pistons have a trade exception that he fits into. I know these things don't get used often, but depending on where the Celtics season is going, and I'm sure we're going to talk about that in a minute, the Pistons could bring in Hauser's salary and send back some sort of picks. So I don't know what those picks would be, but getting an additional like sniper, I think, is something that would make this team go to another level because I am a little bit concerned with the lack of shooting kind of a lot of the key players on this team have.
Sam Hauser is awesome. I think You should absolutely want him. I think every team should want Sam Hauser. Again, 6'9". The dude, since they started tracking his 3-point percentage in late high school to now, he's never had a season below 40% from three. Like he's just high
Crazy.
volume. Like he's just 99th percentile type shooter, underrated defender. He's been a seventh man on a finals team. That's what he was for the Celtics in 2024. And he's on a great contract. 4 years. It's 10, 11, 11.6, and then 12.4 in 28, 29. Like one of the best deals kind of out there. I think it would take a lot for Brad to move off him. I think Brad it would need to be things are going kind of bad.
No, I think I remember talking about this back in like June, July, but this was when I don't even think you guys had done at least one of the trades to get out of the apron. So that type of deal is probably outdated now, but it's still a name I'm keeping an eye on.
There's always a price, and we're still unsure if the Celtics are going to try and get out of the tax. The problem is they're like 12 million away, and Sam Hauser only makes 10. So like putting him into a TP doesn't actually solve getting out of the tax problem. And when you're trying to build around Jalen and Jason, who are on super maxes, Hauser and Pritchard on these like $10/7 million deals that fit really well, I think that like you need them essentially. So I think it will take a lot to move off of Sam Hauser, but as we've seen with Marcus Smart getting moved and half the roster getting moved, there's always going to be a price, and depending on what happens. I would be so sad to lose Sam Hauser, but there's the reality of the second apron era, unfortunately. We kind of covered the Celtics on your hate watch rankings. You're more a respecter than a hater at this point. But Celtics. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, like, another Celtics story I have is like the first NBA finals I ever paid attention to is the 2010 finals that I like fully watched, and I was like all in on that Celtics team. I think because from memory you got up 3-2, then game 6 obviously lose, but then game 7 obviously was game 6 when Perk got injured, his ACL.
I believe that's correct. And then I also watched that, and then the Ron Artest dagger. I just love.
Yeah, I love that too. So I think game 2, Ray Allen at the time hits like the NBA high for NBA finals with threes in a game. I think he had 7 or 8, which doesn't sound like that much anymore, but at the time that was crazy. So no, I've actually the Celtics, like definitely like with that Pierce, Garnett, Allen team was like honestly one of my favorite teams. Like I would, before I even had the Pistons. So I don't hate the Celtics at all.
Yeah, because I'm sure there are plenty of Pistons fans that do that went through the 80s.
A lot.
So Celtics expectations, their over-unders 41.5. We've been kind of tossing and turning between stealth tanking this season. Like you're very rarely going to have a chance to get like a lottery pick with Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum on your team, obviously. I don't know. When you look at the roster, what does your brain do? Because it's very different, obviously, than the past 4 years.
It's so strange. I'm so used to just looking at the roster and being like, there's like, Drew was only there for 2 seasons, but even Al Horford not being there is just weird. Yep. The front court's bizarre. Like my guy Luka Garza's there. He's a Pistons legend.
Yeah, that's right.
But I think Peyton Pritchard could be due for a massive season. Like that's a guy I'm keeping an eye on. Jaylen Brown's the obvious one. Chris Boucher is a player I want the Pistons to sign. Someone who can stretch the floor and protect the rim a little bit. I am concerned though about the front court. I'm not gonna lie. And I'm concerned about the defense, which has been obviously a calling card as well as offense for this team. But Anthony Simons should be fun. Like, what's the go there? What's Celtics? Because I think a lot of people, at least nationally, just think he's going to be traded and flipped at some point. But what's the Celtics fan base think of the Anthony Simons edition?
I love RJ. I love RJ in the chat. Very, he believes deeply in the Celtics culture. Celtics finishing number 4 seed. Pistons come in at 5. And it's definitely not coming from a place of hate. RJ just analyzes the game in his way. So sorry. um, Anthony Simons is going to be tough to flip. There just doesn't seem to be a market for these guys that score a ton of points at the guard position that don't defend. Like I've been using D'Angelo Russell as my example. The fact that he's making $6 million for the Mavericks, and him and Anthony Simons, they're different guys, obviously, but not that different at the same time. So $27 million contract. I'm not sure. Like the Rockets kind of come up as if they are still really good and want to make a trade for a guard, then maybe there's a Anthony Simons move. I know we've got half of the Celtics fans are buying into Anthony Simons is going to actually be a competent defender now that he's got Joe Mazzulla sending him, wartime videos before he goes to bed and things of that nature. So I'm excited. They're going to be a fun team, I think. Like you said, Chris Boucher, they're going to score points, they're going to run, they're going to play hard, but defensively, this is like the first time in years, basically since Brad Stevens got here, that I'm like worried about the defense. Where I think they could be a bottom 5 defense, and maybe Neemias Queta proves me wrong. Xavier Tillman got a second knee injection, but like there's a very, very, very obvious hole in the team.
I think the thing, like, if you look at the Mavs last season and how they end up getting the number 1 pick, I know the Mavs have jumped up high and a few teams have with the new lottery odds. But if I'm a Celtics fan, obviously you guys, your expectations are always very, very high because those expectations are normally met. But it's kind of a bit of a win-win in the sense, if this team is like, RJ had them at the 4 seed. If that happens, then there's going to be some incredible growth on the roster. But if just say for the sake of like they're in the play-in, like around that 41 wins, it's like, well, if you miss or you win a play-in game, then lose and you don't make the playoffs, like you still could end up with a top 5 pick. And then if they just, the wheels just fall off early and it's like, stealth tank, then you still are going to have a good chance that top 5, 8 pick. I will say, as someone who's watched a lot of tanking teams, just be careful what you wish for with that. I'm not saying that to you directly. Like, it sucks, especially post trade deadline when they rest, like all your star players don't play anymore. They don't play, and you're watching like the G League players come up. Like, it's not fun. But I do think either way, like it feels to me like a win-win as a Pistons fan, just looking at how this season could go.
Yeah. It's
maybe
a good
that's
point.
The wrong way to put it, a win-win, but
no, you've absolutely nailed it. That's exactly how we've approached this entire offseason. It's like, if we exceed expectations, it's going to be because Jordan Walsh, Baylor Scheinman, Hugo Gonzalez, Josh Minot, someone has popped. One of these random young guys, maybe Luka Garza was actually, some talent waiting in plain sight that didn't get a chance, or Neemias Queta takes longer to develop. Like, or Peyton Pritchard, he was 6th man of the year last year, but now he gets this even bigger opportunity, and he gets even closer to a Jalen Brunson type guy. And if it goes badly, then we get some lottery odds. But yeah, you're right. It sounds good to tank until we get to March and we're watching Amari Williams and Max Schulger, who are, two-way guys that were exciting in Summer League. But after 2 weeks of watching them, it's going to be like, bro, I guess the difference is, that Jason Tatum's coming back on the other side of it.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the saving grace.
Can I ask, what is the Celtics starting lineup? And I guess rotation.
Well, so I think it'll be Jalen. I almost said Jason, Freudian slip, tough times. Jalen, I've been saying that for 8 years. Jalen, Derek, Sam Hauser, Pritchard, and Neemias Queta. That's what I expect to be the starting 5. Anthony Simons off the bench with one of those big men, whether it's so Boucher will come off the bench, and then maybe one of the Tillman or Gaza, and then there's going to be, is it going to be your Baylor Scheinman, who we drafted last year, Jordan Walsh a couple of years ago, Hugo Gonzalez, who people are excited about. There's going to be Josh Minot. There's like that poo-poo platter of like unproven talent is the kind way of saying it. Like, When I
Yeah.
say Baylor Scheim, Jordan Walsh, Josh Minot, Hugo Gonzalez to you, like, do you know who those people are? What does that do for you?
Yeah, Jordan Walsh. Jordan Walsh, I wanted the Pistons to draft him a couple of years ago. He was
Okay.
like the athletic wing in that draft that could have swing potential. So I know Walsh and Shyman. I know just from seeing Celtics Twitter, like, and hearing Bill talk about him on Bill Simmons pod, which is
It's
I
true.
think that's why I think because I love Bill Simmons pod.
Yeah.
Like, rest in peace to Simmons and Rasulo pods. But they always obviously I get the Celtics are always a topic there. But I actually do know. Is Josh Minot a center?
No, he's like a
forward.
6'9" kind of wing guy. He basically has played 400 minutes. He was drafted by the T-Wolves.
Yeah.
Never really got a chance there.
So I know a couple of those names. I'm surprised. So Simon's off the bench. Is that like was that said at training at media day or anything, or is that just a gut feel?
That's just a gut feel right now.
Yeah.
I think like Pritchard's kind of earned it at this point, and
Yeah.
I actually think Pritchard's just better now. I like Simon's probably you give the edge to offensively, but holy shit, man, Pritchard was so good offensively last season, and he's turned into a good defender. Like,
Yeah.
man, he's just a guy that you know this is going to squeeze every ounce of potential out of himself, and like even in the playoffs, you know, he's getting posted up by Paolo and Franz and like really holding his own. So he's really developed defensively and offensively. I'm really interested to see what he does, but we don't know. We don't know. I could be wrong. We saw a 5-second clip of, you know, a hype video from the Celtics media team with those guys in a starting lineup. Who knows what that actually means? But I think it'll be Simons off the bench, and we'll go for 3 straight 6 Men of the Year winners: Brogdon, Pritchard, and now Simons.
I hope Pritchard starts. I don't know if he's got that Brunson leap in him, but I think him as a scorer is ridiculous. Like every time he shoots, I feel like it's going in. Doesn't matter if he's like 5 feet behind the line. Like obviously he's the half court shot king as well. But like genuinely, like I would love to see him start. That would be really cool.
Yeah, I mean, Brunson leap is not going to happen, but I guess he's just like because that just doesn't happen to go from he was kind of coming off the bench to solid player to now he's like a legit top 10, but just a guy that, you know, there were indicators of when he was given opportunities that he really like excelled. Even in the minutes without Tatum last year, Pritchard was still awesome. So can he do the Timu Brunson leap? I would like to find out. Jack, it's been an absolute pleasure. Probably a long time coming getting us two together to talk some hoops. So we really appreciate you hopping on, and maybe we'll touch base through the season. But yeah, tell the people where they can find you, because I think the Pistons are going to be a team that Celtics fans are found gravitating towards this season.
Appreciate that, my guy. Like I said, really excited to jump on, and it's been really fun talking some Celtics, talking some non-Piston stuff. Is a nice change, as much as I love the team. But at Pistons_Jack on all social media channels. We do post-game shows, a lot of similar content that you guys put out here over on YouTube, and then stuff across everything. So just at Pistons_Jack.
I love it. It's been an absolute pleasure. I mean, the preseason is right around the corner. There was actually basketball today. It happened. I haven't caught up on the Abu Dhabi Knicks Sixers game yet, but basketball is here. I'm excited. Everybody, until next time, go Celtics.